You are now tuned in to Go Time Dolphins with Charlie Touche and Kadeem Simmons, the Miami Dolphins podcast that's for the fans and by the fans.
Gotta make them lose their mind when it's your time. And it's show time. Going all out when it's go time. Go. I ain't wasting no time. Gotta make them lose their mind when it's show time. Cause it's your time. Lay it on the line when it's go time. Go. Don't waste no time.
Mr. Charlie Touche, I have another football story for you. So we mentioned non-league on Monday, and we said the winner, whoever wins non-league or that particular division, goes up into League Two. So also on Monday,
hold on, what's League Two? Is what's the Premier League?
So you got Premier League at the top,
Mm-hmm.
Championship, League One, League Two. Those are the four professional football divisions in England.
So where's Wrexham right now?
Non-league, so they're below League Two. So they are
okay. So,
they are officially they're not technically a professional team, but where football has developed so much over the past few years, and teams are like getting relegated from League Two to non-league, you're getting more full-time professional teams in non-league, if that makes sense.
How many teams per league? If you could sum it up and real quick, bring us home.
20 in the Premier League, and then 24 in the three leagues below.
24 each?
Yeah,
or 24 total?
Each. 24 each.
That's a lot of teams, bro. How am I supposed to find a team, bro?
Well, I've got another story for you. So League Two, on Monday, it was AFC Wimbledon v Salford City. AFC Wimbledon went 1-0 up. Salford City equalised. AFC Wimbledon went 2-1 up. And then in the 91st minute, Salford City got a penalty. Callum Hendry steps up. Callum Hendry misses. Still 2-1. 95th minute. So bearing in mind, football is 90 minutes, but you've got like a few minutes over.
I hope you just said that for the fans. You have stoppage time. It's called stoppage time.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, go ahead.
So in stoppage time, 95th minute, Callum Hendry equalises. 2-2. A minute later, Callum Hendry 3-2. 96th minute. So in stoppage time, he missed one penalty, but scored two more goals. 3-2 Salford City. Game finished.
Bro, I'm here for the games like that, bro. I sign me up for that, but don't sign me up for the games where it looks like it's just a friendly or exhibition or a scrimmage and no one's playing hard, bro. I can't. I don't have time to dedicate 2 hours out of my day to something like where people not going hard. But yeah, sign me up for stuff like that. We got a guest today, Kadeem. One of our favorites. It's draft season. We don't have this guy on enough. We said we're going to bring him on a couple more times. This is the third season now. He would be on our podcast, and it doesn't seem like it. Like it seems, we said we're going to bring him on more than once a year, and then last season we brought him on twice in like 1 month, and then he disappeared again. You feel me? So, Ollie Hodgkinson from Pro Football Network, welcome back to Go Time Dolphins. We appreciate you, bro.
I appreciate you two guys. We always have a great time when I come on with you boys, so it's a pleasure. Like you say, we don't do it enough, but I always enjoy coming in and chopping it up. So yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about the Miami Dolphins and the 2023 NFL Draft.
For sure. Hold up, before we talk about the Miami Dolphins, we can take care of some AFC East housekeeping. You know what I'm saying?
Wait. Before we even get there, are you not going to do the intro?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I forgot we have an intro.
Again, I'm taking over duty from now on. The outro last time.
No.
The intro. Nah, can't do this.
No. It's Go Time Dolphins, the Miami Dolphins podcast that goes not only across the pond, but across the world. I'm your boy, Charlie Touche. Got my co-host, Kadeem Simmons, with me. It's always for the fans and by the fans. Your favorite podcast, Ollie Hodgkinson, Pro Football Network in the building, well-known New England Patriots fan. Yeah?
I think it's well known on this podcast. It feels like we bring it up every time I come on. Like
we got to mix it in. We got to make it make sense. You feel me? What you guys doing with McCorkle Jones, bro?
hopefully letting him go. Finding someone to take him. I'm a big fan. I wasn't a big. So right, let me go right back to the start. I wasn't a big fan of the Mac Jones selection when he came out of Alabama for New England Patriots. And quarterback fit, I think we've probably talked about it on this podcast before, but quarterback fit is so important. And the atmosphere, the environment that you come into as a rookie quarterback is so important. And in some respects, the New England Patriots have failed Mac Jones with the support that they've given him in the 2 years that he's been in New England, that he's been in Foxborough. But I think he was overdrafted, and I am a big Bailey Zappi fan. And I know people are talking about, well, what the Patriots do if they let Mac Jones go. I think Bailey Zappi is a guy who can lead that offense. You saw it at times last season. He's an incredibly astute, very intelligent, football-minded guy. You saw that Western Kentucky when he came out of Western Kentucky. So I was a big fan of the pick when they made it last year. I know it surprised a lot of people. They didn't expect to see the Patriots use a 4th-round pick on a quarterback last year, but I liked the pick. I like the long-term future for Bailey Zappi in New England if they surround him with the right pieces, and the coaching is better, and the play calling is better in the 2023 NFL season. I think he's a guy who can lead the Patriots to some success. I mean, anything would seem like a success at the moment if you're a Patriots fan.
Not to bore any of the Dolphin fans listening to the Go Time Dolphins, but you guys do have Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki now, former Miami Dolphins. How you feel about the acquisitions?
Yeah, I really like Mike Gesicki, both as a football player and as a person who had the opportunity to speak to him when the Dolphins came over last season. Do the acquisition move the needle for the Patriots? I don't know. You know, we heard all about John O. Smith and Hunter Long being those two big.
Hunter Henry.
Hunter. Yes. Sorry, I was thinking about Hunter Long. Miami Dolphins and Boston College connection for you. So Hunter Henry and Johnny Smith, and those guys who spent a lot of money on, and they didn't really move the needle for the offense. And obviously, hopefully, they can do something better with Mike Gesicki in that offense. And the same with Devontae Parker. The wide receiver position has been consistently in recent seasons a struggle for the Patriots. We'll see how they address it in the draft as well this time around. But like you say, I feel like a traitor talking about the Patriots on a Dolphins podcast.
Well, so hear me out. And this is it's a perfect segue, though, because I have a question. And I had this question. Matter of fact, I hit you on Twitter. And I want to say maybe 3 months ago. Hey, just to put it out there, CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, right? And I was just curious because I respect your opinion. I value your opinion. And I think we both took the opposite. I think you took Bryce Young. And I took CJ Stroud. Is that accurate?
I think the thing with CJ Stroud and Bryce Young is it's paper thin between the two in terms of who is the best quarterback in this class. For me, I think the size with CJ Stroud is preferable. Mm-hmm. The arm strength with CJ Stroud is better than with Bryce Young. Bryce Young, for me, is... more NFL ready is the wrong phrase, but if you look at how Bryce Young plays the game of football, for a young man, he's incredibly poised. He's incredibly professional. You listen to any interviews with Bryce Young, he's a leader of a team already at the age of 22, whatever he is. He's a kid who you can go to bat for, who, if it wasn't for his slightness of frame, I don't think there'd be any questions about how he translates to the NFL level. Poised, precise, laser precision.
Right.
His arm isn't as strong as CJ Stroud. I don't think it matters because you look at what he can do in the short to intermediate range, the velocity he can put on his passes, the zip that he can get, that he can generate, the quickness he can release the ball, and then you've got what he can do on the move as well as a creator, and how he throws on the move as well. There's a lot of ticks in Bryce Young's box. I think it's incredibly paper thin. Yeah. If you're the Carolina Panthers at pick 1 in the 2023 NFL draft, it's kind of pick your poison for the Panthers.
So hear me out. I had this question. This is the real question I have for you. Like 3 months ago, maybe. Yeah, about 3 months ago. With the Dolphins having Tua Tagovailoa as their quarterback, and knowing we don't have a bona fide backup yet, right? Back in the day, the Green Bay Packers would go backup through backup through backup through backup, right? Behind Brett Favre, and they would move them like Ty Detmer, and I can't come up with any off the top of my head right now, but they'll just keep trading their backups because they were worth something behind Brett Favre. We haven't got to that point yet here in Miami. But Hendon Hooker was someone I thought was going to fall into like the third round because of his injuries. Now we've talked this man up to the first round somehow. Where do you see Hendon Hooker? And do you think if he was a third round pick, would it be a reach? Not even a reach. Would it be something that the Dolphins should think about if Hendon Hooker made it to the third round? And would that what do you think that would do with the dynamic of, oh, you have Hendon Hooker and Tua, now there's a controversy? How much, knowing what the Dolphins are in the AFC East, do you think that'll be a controversy?
I think the issue that you have with the Dolphins in that situation and that hypothetical situation playing out is the lack of draft capital in this class. Can you really afford, given some of the holes on the roster, could you afford to use that 84th overall pick or the 51st in the second round to bring in essentially a backup quarterback? I don't think the Dolphins are in a position to do that right now. You're right, Hendon Hooker's trajectory through this, the latter part of this 2023 NFL draft process, very much looks like he could be a guy that's taken in the back of the first round, and that removes that conversation altogether. The injury obviously feels and sounds like he's making good progress coming back from that injury, but it will raise a question mark. The fact that he's an older rookie will, rightly or wrongly, raise some question marks for some teams, and him being the most productive or having the most productive seasons of his college career in an offense that is not atypically a pro style offense at Tennessee is also going to raise some questions. But I think when you look at Hendon Hooker, for me, his arm talent is clear. He throws such a beautiful spiral, Hendon Hooker. His ability as a mobile creator. We talk about a guy like Anthony Richardson who creates with his athleticism. Hendon Hooker's got that element of, not that element of athleticism. He's not the athlete that Anthony Richardson is, but he's bursty, he's explosive, he creates with his legs, but he also creates with his mind, if that makes sense, because he sees the game so well. You watch him with the ball in his hands, he's got ball carrier vision. You know, he looks like a running back, and he makes decision and he makes yardage, not just with his ability to scramble athletically, but also to see the game unfolded in front of him and make yardage that way. So there is a lot to love about Hendon Hooker. And it does very much feel like there's a lot of teams that need a quarterback in this 2023 NFL draft class that could potentially look at Hendon Hooker, look at the first round, look at the fifth-year option that the first round selection would give you for a quarterback, and say, hell, let's take a swing. I look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They brought in Baker Mayfield. That doesn't preclude them from selecting a quarterback in the first round of the draft. There's teams like the Las Vegas Raiders. I believe they're bringing Hendon Hooker in for a visit this week. They pick early in the second round. They could jump up into the late first and use 2 first-round selections and have 2 first-round selections, use one of them on Hendon Hooker. There's a lot of teams that aren't set at the quarterback position, and it doesn't feel like this is going to play out like the 2022 NFL draft, where we thought there'd be 4 or 5 quarterbacks go in the first round, and then we sat there and we watched Kenny Pickett go, and then everyone else fell to the third. It doesn't feel like that's going to happen this year. You're going to have Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young go probably early, and then you're probably going to get Hendon Hooker go in the late first round. What happens after that is an absolute crapshoot, because the quarterback class kind of massively drops off. And I think that's the thing with Hendon Hooker as well. When you look at the quarterbacks that come behind him, there's such a gap. For me personally, as an evaluator, there's such a gap between Hendon Hooker and whoever else comes behind him. So again, if you're a quarterback needy team, you can't really gamble on being able to pick up someone else in the late second round, early third round, because that guy doesn't exist there.
What you got for us, Kadeem?
So obviously that conversation was based around Hendon Hooker and potentially taking him at 51 or 84, depending on if he falls. And you mentioned that Miami Dolphins have holes. We kind of have, or not we touched on it briefly, but Miami Dolphins Twitter are kind of pushing for a running back and then running back early. So obviously the Dolphins have Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr., friend of the podcast, Mars Gaskin, and Zavon Ahmed on their books already. If Jahmyr Gibbs gets to, say, 45, still there, should the Dolphins move up for him? If he's even there at 51, should they take him? Or are the Dolphins' needs, I guess, more important elsewhere?
This feels like a conversation that certainly for the last 2 draft cycles maybe has gone on with the Miami Dolphins, because there isn't that stud in the running back room. And I know last year this was very much a conversation around, the top running backs in the class. If they're there, should the Dolphins take him? I think if Jahmyr Gibbs is there at 51, I would not hesitate to pull the trigger. I'm a huge fan of Jahmyr Gibbs. He's, for me, the clear second best running back in this class, and he brings true three down value. I think if you watch him as a pure runner, he's incredibly talented, and that was evident at Georgia Tech, and that was evident at Alabama. His ability to hit the hole explosively, his ability to take it the distance with decent long speed, his ability to cut is fabulous. It's a joy to behold. And then as a receiver, him and Bijan Robinson wouldn't look out of place in a wide receiver room sometimes when you look at how they operate as receivers, both as route runners, with the body control at the catch point, with the hands, the pass catching technique. So they're both strong receiving backs. And then Jahmyr Gibbs' ability in pass protection, I think, is better than what Bijan Robinson brings you as a pass protector. There's some reps on his Alabama tape where you look at this kid and go, some words that I ain't going to utter on this podcast. There's some plays where you see Jahmyr Gibbs handle a blitzing linebacker as if he's a fly coming out of the backfield and just swats him away. So I think the value, this is a deep running back class. So I think if Jahmyr Gibbs isn't there at 51, you can get a running back later on in the draft. I wouldn't, again, back to the draft capital thing, I think moving around the board isn't going to be a great option for the Dolphins, especially to get a running back, because the class for me is so deep at running back. I think you get a guy in the later stages if you want to move around there a little bit, but also where they're at in the back end of round 6, 7. I think you could get a running back who's going to come in, and you look at what Isaiah Pacheco did for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think there's guys who can do that for a team in this draft class. So if he's there at 51, I don't think it's a waste of a pick. I think it's a great pick. If he's still knocking around at 45 and you're worried a team might take him before 51, I don't think it's worth trading up for. There's enough running back talent to justify not making that leap, even if it is a few spots.
In your professional opinion, do you think he makes it to 51?
It's difficult because the conversation is very much focused around what happens with Bijan Robinson and how far does he drop because he's a running back. This kid is a top tier talent, a top 5 talent in the class, but he's a running back. And how do NFL teams value the running back position? So if Bijan Robinson starts to fall significantly, that will obviously impact what happens with Jahmyr Gibbs. I think you saw last year, once running backs start going, they do start moving quite quickly off the board. There's a number of teams I think that have got multiple first-round picks. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles, for example, and they're a team who, excuse me, they could be in the market for a running back, and that makes a perfect landing spot for Jahmyr Gibbs, as far as I'm concerned. It's difficult. I think it very much depends who goes where, because we're hearing all sorts of stories about this wide receiver class, there being a run on wide receivers early in the second round, and that that starts knocking guys down. There's only 31 spots in the first round. Soon starts knocking guys down.
30. Y'all didn't catch the sneak diss, boy. He said there's only 31 spots.
Slide that in.
It was solid though. That was solid. Just like the Miami Dolphins podcast that goes across the world or around the world. That was the best line you ever dropped on our podcast, bro. We appreciate that.
No, thank you.
Yeah, Flat Earthers. Shout out to the Flat Earthers. So everyone knows the Miami Dolphins traded for Jalen Ramsey, and everyone knows the Miami Dolphins have Xavier Howard. We are huge fans of Brandon Jones and friend of the podcast, Javon Holland, Cater Kohu has come on nicely. Ooh. And
you said Brandon Jones and then friend of the podcast, Javon Holland, like Brandon Jones isn't a friend of the podcast.
Listen. And Go Time Dolphins social media just did a whole thing on Brandon Jones too. Shout out to friend of the podcast, Brandon Jones. You already. So Dolphins secondary is looking lovely. But I am one that says you can never have enough corners. And even when we had Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, I'm like, we need another corner. We're just too top heavy at corner. And apparently, I believe it's Barry Jackson came out and said people may be surprised if the Dolphins go corner in the second round at 51. It would not surprise me even a little bit, because I wanted us to take Marcus Jones last year. You know what I'm saying? I wanted us to go get someone with the Noah Igbenogany pick. If that was a corner, a different corner, I would have been okay with it, and everyone would have still rioted like, why are you taking another corner? We had 3 first round. You know what I'm saying? So if there's a stud corner there, I'm always going to take a corner regardless of who we have at corner. Does it surprise you at all that the Dolphins may be thinking corner? And 2, in your professional opinion, what corners will we have available around 51 if we did go corner?
Yeah, no, it doesn't surprise me at all. Like you say, you can never have enough cornerbacks. And I think you look at some of the defenses around the league at the moment, and they're screaming out for cornerback quality at starter and cornerback depth. You can never, for me, it's the premier defensive position. Between that and pass rusher, you haven't got enough guys at those 2 positions. It doesn't matter who you've got the rest of your personnel. So I wouldn't surprise me. There's holes, and we'll talk about how they might maybe fill some of those other holes. But you're going to get potentially, for me, a day 1 starter at 51 at cornerback, because of the depth of the cornerback class. This is heavy on good running backs. It's heavy on good tight ends. It's heavy on good pass rushers. And it's heavy, very heavy on good cornerbacks. I look at a guy like Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State, who for me is a round 1 guy every step of the way. A kid with the size, height-wise, the length, fast, fluid, incredible football intelligence, been incredibly productive in the Southeastern Conference. This is whenever you hear me talk about football, the Southeastern Conference is the top tier of it, and Emmanuel Forbes has set NCAA records for pick sixes in the SEC. And the only reason for me that he could potentially stray outside of the first round is because he is historically, and I mean historically, lightweight.
160 pounds.
Weighed in the 160s at the combine. I believe between the combine and the Mississippi State Pro Day, he managed to add 5 or 6 pounds, which could be a sign to an NFL team that he has that potential to add weight, to add muscle onto his frame. But he would be, like I say, he would be historically, he's an outlier at that weight. I think when you watch Emmanuel Forbes' game, though, I don't think you see a kid who is too lightweight to play the cornerback position in the NFL. He's incredibly aggressive. He's a physical cornerback, both in coverage and in the ground game as well, which I think is an underrated element of cornerback evaluation. People don't talk enough about how they can contribute in run support from the cornerback position. And I think you look at Emmanuel Forbes' tape and it's on there. So Emmanuel Forbes is a guy that I like at 51. If that weight does cause him to drop, then you've got like ascending guys who potentially could push themselves beyond 51. Guys like Julius Brent out of Kansas State. For me, I wrote a piece on him back in October and said he could be the Tariq Woolen of the 2023 NFL draft class. This is a guy who is legitimately tall, long, hyper athletic, and he showed that with his testing at the NFL Combine. He really quantified that on tape athleticism, and I don't think the NFL is going to make the same mistake again and let a guy like Julius Brent flip down the draft order like they did with Tariq Woolen, because you saw what Tariq Woolen did in his first year with the Seattle Seahawks. I think Julius Brent, in terms of his development as a cornerback, in terms of his technical ability as a cornerback, is probably a touch ahead of what Tariq Woolen was last year. Woolen was, still transitioning from playing wide receiver coming into UTSA as a wide receiver, really still making that transition. There was a lot on his tape where you were like, well, he needs to clean this and this up. So I think Julius Brent is already probably a touch ahead of him technically, if not a little behind him athletically. And kind of a wild card guy for you at 51 is Tariq Stevenson, a hometown kid in that he played his football for the Miami Hurricanes. He's fluid, explosive, but showcases patience. His physical impress, his high football IQ and to play the position from a zone coverage perspective. So there's a lot to like about Tariq Stevenson. I think he could be a guy who's legitimately there at 51 that could come into the NFL and make an impression on day one.
That's some good stuff, bro.
Thank you, sir.
So what you're telling me is that Miami can't go wrong at 51 if they go running back or corner. What if they traded back?
Well, Miami can always go wrong. Same as any team.
As you told, with Noah Monogany at 29
and
other countless picks. But you mentioned the Dolphins don't have that many picks. They have 51, 84, and then 1 to 6 and 1 to 7th. Is Miami's best bet I say regardless of who's on the board, if Jahmyr Gibbs or that Zay Flowers AI video of him doing a gas mask, if that Zay Flowers video emerges and he's there at 51, then Miami take him. But is there, again, as Charlie's now saying, in your professional opinion, is their best bet at 51 to move back and try and get more draft picks? Not just because, there's the Miami Dolphins, but having 4 picks and only 2 early on is not a great look. So, move back from 51, probably trade Cedric Wilson if possible. Like, should that be Miami's draft plan going into the NFL draft?
It very much depends on what happens on the night and who falls where. Obviously, you always want to have the option to move around the board. You want to have as many picks as possible. But there's, teams like the Los Angeles Rams have shown that taking the approach of F them picks isn't always a bad thing, because the NFL draft at the end of the day is very heavy on projection. And what the Dolphins have gone out and done is, they've brought in Jalen Ramsey, a guy who has been a top tier cornerback in the NFL. Obviously the first round pick that they gave up with the acquisition of Bradley Chubb, they've gone out and they've got guys that they know 100% know can play football in the NFL. And that worked. That worked for the Los Angeles Rams. It won them a Super Bowl. So there is always that fine line that you tread between overvaluing that kind of unknown commodity of draft capital and utilizing it for a known commodity. I think it very much does depend what the board looks like. when the Dolphins get on the clock at 51. If there is the opportunity to drop back and still select, some high quality NFL starter talent a little bit later on, and have some picks to address. I look at the Dolphins and the team needs. Tight end. We talked about Mike Gesicki earlier. He's obviously out the door. Tight end is probably a need in this class. Running back is probably a need. Cornerback probably a need. Linebacker, they brought in David Long. I think one of the unheralded free agency acquisitions or off-season acquisitions. But linebacker, they can always use linebacker depth. Well, I think we talked about that last year on this show before they took Channing Tindall.
Talk about every year.
Well, yeah, exactly. And you talk about the offensive line every year as well. And there is still that need to add on the offensive line. There's still both, at the bookends and on the interior. Defensive line, I know Cy Clancy spoke this week about how Vic Fangio uses defensive tackles in his scheme, and the Dolphins likely could use that 51 selection on a true nose tackle. And there's a couple of guys at 51 that, if they're still on the board, could really plug into the center of that 3-man defensive line. So there is plenty of holes to fill. And if you can play the board right, yes, of course it's worth doing it. It's whether the board is there to be played when you're on the clock at 51.
I think the Dolphins put themselves in a position where it's apparent it's a win now year. And when you're able to bring back a Nick Needham, who was probably on his way out because he's going to get what did he get? $2 million, $3 million or something like that. And every dollar counts right now when you're up against the cap. And then you're able to bring back Andrew Van Ginkel. Again, another case where he was probably going to be on the way out, but he came back for pennies on the pound. What y'all say? We say pennies on the dollar. You know what I'm saying? So people want to stay here now and play here now. And that has enabled us to say, you know what, at 51, we're going to see what we have. If we can go linebacker, we can go linebacker. If we can go corner, we can go corner. But at the same time, there isn't a need where it's like, hey, if you don't fix this today, you can forget about the playoffs. There's not that kind of need. There's needs where it's like, hey, it'll be nice if we upgrade it here. But there isn't a gaping hole in anywhere on the Dolphins. And that's good for us to say, because it hasn't always been like that, especially of late. It's always a huge, this is bad for us, right? So if you could just give us one person or a couple, it doesn't matter. It's up to you, Ollie, that you regardless of position, and you just tell all our goal timers and say, hey, look, this is player, or these are a couple players you should look out for regardless of position. Who would you have?
Okay, let's go at a couple for each potential selection. So we're on the assumption that nose tackle is potentially on the board at 51 based on what some of the rumors that are out there, and also some of the top 30 visits that the Dolphins have conducted. You look at a guy like Saika Ika out of Baylor, the 6'3", off the top of my head, 6'2", 6'3", weighed in at Baylor. Well, Baylor had him listed at 350, but he's listed at he weighed in at a combine at 333 off the top of my head. This is a guy who he didn't test very well, and I think that really has knocked him out of potential first round selection, because his testing was poor. There's no other way of putting it. But when you look at the tape, this is a guy who, firstly, is a nose tackle. He epitomizes look, 2 on me, someone's free. He's going to eat up 2 guys, going to eat up double teams because of just the sheer size and power of the kid. But he's explosive off the snap. He offers a potential as a pass rusher, as well as what he brings in the game as a run defender. He's also, for me, referring back to the testing, you can see him hustling downfield. The motor is there for a big guy. I think you could plug him into the center of that defensive front and allow everyone else. We talked about Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, they're going to have all the time in the world to impose themselves on the backfield with Saika Ika eating up those double teams on the defensive front. Keanu Benton as well, the defensive tackle out of Wisconsin. He's a big, strong nose tackle, highly athletic nose tackle. So if you were considering that to be the direction of 51, there's two guys who could be available, could play right away, could make an immediate impact on the Dolphins' defensive front. Talked about linebacker, 84. A guy like Ivan Pace Jr. out of Cincinnati, a smaller middle linebacker, inside linebacker. But you aren't going to find a kid who comes downfield and hits you in the mouth with ferocity like Ivan Pace does. Incredibly productive at Cincinnati and at Miami of Ohio. A guy who just lives in the backfield. Just a relentless, explosive, fast, physical force who also has got experience in coverage as well. So he adds a multi-faceted approach to the game, which when you're looking at a linebacker spot, that's what the modern NFL game is now. You have to be able to impact the game in coverage as well, and I think Ivan Pace can do that. It's an underrated element of his game. Offensive line. So let's look in the later rounds. You want some guys who can provide depth and potentially versatility on the interior offensive line. I really like Antonio Mathie out of UCLA. This guy is an absolute physical beast. There's no other way of putting it. You see a blitzer coming anywhere near Antonio Mathie, you're going to see the guy on the floor. Perform really well at the NFL Combine, perform really well through the All-Star game cycle. He's a guy who's really starting to pick up pace as the NFL draft gets closer. I think he's a guy you can slide in at left guard, because that is for me, I think it's probably the question mark when you look at the Miami Dolphins depth chart on the offensive line is the left guard position. So look at him. Look at Sidney So, a guard out of Eastern Michigan. He's 6'3", 323 pounds, incredibly athletic, incredibly violent. In terms of his ability to impact the ground game is phenomenal. He's going to get out to the second level quicker than you can even blink. And he really does impact the ground game, but still offers pass protection capability as well. He's a smaller school guy who's probably been overlooked really in this class, so he would, there's the potential that he's still knocking around at round 6 on there. So you've got a good mix of offensive line. You've got some guys who play linebacker, guys who play defensive tackle. What do you guys think about the wide receiver position for the Dolphins? Do you see this being a position that they might add depth to? Obviously, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are the guys, but can you see them utilizing 6 or 7 for a wide receiver? Because I've got a couple of guys, if you can.
Go ahead, Kadeem.
I'm kind of on the record. It might be on social media, but I think wide receiver is the one position I don't think they'll look at in the draft. Obviously, like you said, Hill and Waddle, Eric Ezukanma, who they took last year. You would assume he would have a bigger role. And I think, Blackton Barrios, obviously, is a kick returner, but he might get some snaps with a Craycraft. Again, unless that video emerges of Zay Flowers, and we are working on it, I just that's the one position. Even in the 6th or 7th, I'd be like, didn't quite see that coming, especially if they've only got 4 picks. What do you think, Charlie?
I think anything is always possible in the NFL draft. I think if someone falls to you that you have high on your board that some other teams didn't have for whatever reason, and he's looking at you in the face, you're going to say, well, River Craycraft is only signed for a year. We're trying to move on from Cedric Wilson. That means we only have 2 receivers on the roster. You see what I'm saying? So I'm open to every single position on the table, including quarterback, being a Tua fan, like straight up. And we didn't get into this. We'll get into this in bonus time. Matter of fact, I won't even tip it because I want everyone to come to bonus time with us.
I bet the same question that I've got.
Okay, we'll figure it out in bonus time. So we'll get into that in bonus time. But at the same time, yeah, if you're looking at a receiver that you feel like could be a starter on your team, and then you're looking at a corner where like, yo, this corner could be a third or fourth corner on our team, but this receiver could be a starter. We're solid at corner right now. You would like to go into the draft and letting the draft come to you, but at the same time, that's something you have to weigh out for yourself, and that's on the Chris Greer and personnel. For Charlie Touche, yo, Tyreek Hill talking about retiring in 2025. You're one injury away from being a one receiver team. Nah, bro, let's go ahead. Go ahead and go with receiver. I still would like to see what we have in Eric Ezukama. I think he looks good. He looks great in person, like run around in shorts. But and even during the preseason with Skylar Thompson, he looked good. But at the same time, you never know. But we are going to get into bonus time because we're going to top it up.
At least let Ollie say the names he was going to say.
Oh, go ahead. My bad.
No, what?
My bad.
I am the host.
No, my bad.
Look at me. I am the captain now, yeah? I am the captain now.
Go ahead, Alex.
So, in all honesty, Eric Ezukama, I am intrigued to see what he offers in the second year. My guy at Pro Football Network, Ian Cummins, was a huge fan of Eric Ezukama coming out, so I am intrigued to see what he offers. You've got, for me, this wide receiver class has been kind of derided compared to previous years, but you've got guys who are going to offer a multitude of skill sets late in the day on day three. You look at a guy like Demario Douglas, the wide receiver out of Liberty, who's incredibly explosive. His Twitter handle is Pop Shotter, and when you see this kid on the field, he's like Pop Shotter out of a cannon. He's really impressed throughout the cycle. I've been lucky enough to spend a little bit of time around Liberty University and watched him as he's come through that program and to the point where he's receiving national acclaim now. And so he's a guy who brings you that explosive speed element that a Tyreek Hill and a Jalen Waddle brings to your offense. You've got a guy who's kind of in between a big body pass catcher and an athletic speed threat in Andreas Iasivis out of Princeton. He's 6'3", 205, but an incredible athlete, very quick straight line mover, also very twitchy. And then Jason Brownlee out of Southern Miss is a guy that will probably be available late in the day, 6'2", 198, and brings a similar skill set at a discount from a late day three perspective. A couple of tight ends that I like as well in that sort of late round. Josh Wiley out of Cincinnati, and a really fast pass catching option as a tight end who, is a tall, lanky. You always call him a tall, lanky wide receiver, but he does offer a little bit of physicality that you want at the tight end position. And then Brenton Strange out of Penn State is a tight end who's gone a little bit under the radar, who brings an all-round package to the tight end position in that respect.
Yeah, a couple names that everyone could look out for coming into the draft. I know a lot of people don't really follow the draft like that, and they're like, oh, how do I know how to find people? Ali just delivered for us. And then you got Tuesdays 24 coming up shortly. Ali, tell everyone where they can find you, bro.
So you can find me personally on social media at OJ Hodgkinson. You can find the draft work that we're doing through profootballnetwork.com. And if you prefer college football, you follow College Football Network, your new home for college football.
Is it okay if I go on the bonus line today?
Yeah, I'll allow it. Just make sure you do the outro first before you just start talking bonus time stuff.
Hey, y'all stay positive. Test negative. For Ollie Hodgkinson, Kadeem Simmons, I'm Charlie Touche. Thank you for tuning in this time. Make sure you catch us next time on Go Time. Already.
Gotta make them lose their mind when it's your time. And it's show time. Going all out when it's go time. I ain't wasting no time. Gotta make them lose their mind when it's show time. Cause it's your time. Lay it on the line when it's go time. Don't waste no time. Gotta make them lose their mind when it's your time. And it's show time. Going all out when it's go time. I ain't wasting no time.
So I know Charlie had something for you for bonus time.
Hold on, Kadeem. Like, yo, I know our guy here had a hard out, you know what I'm saying? So I was trying to let me sun pass some stuff. So my bad, Ali. You know what I'm saying? And I did want to get this on this side of bonus time. It's Autism Awareness Month. Shout out to friend of the podcast, William Hayes. You know what I'm saying? He has myqscorner.com. Former Miami Dolphin William Hayes came on the podcast, chopped it up with us about and talk autism a little bit. Y'all check out myqscorner.com and just acknowledge Autism Awareness Month. Go ahead, Kadeem. You got the floor.
I feel like I can't talk about football now after you just said that.
What you mean? It's Autism Awareness Month. It's just a plug. You know what I'm saying?
I get that. So I don't know if this is your thing, but it's my thing. And to take it right back to what we were talking about at the start, quarterbacks. Stetson Bennett.
My dog. That's we here, Kadeem.
Yeah,
we back here. We back here.
Stetson Bennett. How far do you think he could fall in the draft? And is he an option for Miami? I don't know, Charlie. Where would you be comfortable taking him?
Stetson Bennett falls to the 4th round. The Dolphins don't have a 4th round pick, and they say, you know what? We're trading next year's 4th and 5th to move up in this draft to get Stetson Bennett. Is that something you would think the Dolphins should consider?
Potentially. Look, you're looking at Stetson Bennett is potentially one of the most fascinating evaluations and discussion points in not just this NFL draft class, but all previous NFL draft classes in recent years, because this is the kid who has, and you know, no matter what you think about QB wins as a quarterback stat or metric, no matter what you think about how good the Georgia defense has been, this is a kid who has led the Georgia Bulldogs to 2 college football national championships. And when I say led, you go back to the college football semifinal this year against Ohio State. Like, everyone wrote Georgia off when they were behind against Ohio State because they were like, well, there's no way Stetson Bennett can deliver the goods and bring Georgia back against Ohio State. And the kid just went out there and straight up balled. And when you look at it, that's kind of what he's done for his entire college football career. His evaluation, you've got a lot of boxes that you can tick with Stetson Bennett in terms of he's showcased that he is an athlete. He's showcased he can be mobile. He's showcased he can extend plays. He's showcased he can, you know, be creative outside the pocket. For a kid who started his college career as a walk-on and has led this team to 2 college football national championships, he's incredibly poised in the pocket. He's obviously heavily experienced. He's beaten out guys who were 5-star recruits at Georgia. Like JT Daniels was supposed to be the guy at Georgia, and yet injury really hampered his college career. But Stetson Bennett beat out JT Daniels for that job at Georgia. He's experienced. He's tough. He can throw off platform. He's actually shown that he's got a good arm. You know, some of the throws that he makes are Sunday throws. You know, the velocity. It's easy for me to say. The velocity that he's showcased he can get on the ball. His placement that he's showcased during his Georgia career. It just doesn't. There doesn't feel like a lot of steam behind him as an NFL prospect, and I openly question whether Stetson Bennett wanted to be an NFL quarterback, because early-ish on in this process, this is a kid out there playing knock it or run in the Dallas areas after 3 or 4 beers, like I was when I was 12 years old, and then there was he didn't have a. He turned down the invitation to the Senior Bowl. He didn't have any representation for quite a while. And it kind of all smacked of, look, this is a kid who, you know, he's happy with his lot. He's won 2 national championships. He doesn't feel like he has an NFL future. And he doesn't seem interested in pursuing that regardless. But, you know, he has now got a representative. He went to the NFL Combine. He worked out. And it feels like he is a guy who will be on an NFL roster at the start of 2020. 23 NFL season. He's just. We talk about Bryce Young being small. This is, Stetson Bennett's a small quarterback, but I think he'd be on an NFL roster. Is he better than Skylar Thompson?
Here's my thing: 4 and a 5 next year to come back up into this draft. That might be a little bit too much. I'm just saying, I would if I don't have a 4th round pick, Stetson Bennett falls to the 4th. I don't mind working my way up somehow, some way to get him. I do believe he's better than Skylar Thompson. I believe he's going to get up out the pocket, avoid danger. He's going to use his feet without hesitation. We thought that's what we were going to get with Skylar Thompson. We haven't gotten that. Kadeem, you asked the question. Did you want to say something about it?
Also, it's his age. I know you got to shoot soon, but is his age not a concern? He's 25, turned 26 in October.
He's 25, not 45.
Well, he's 25, he's 25, not 45, but acting like a 12-year-old. The ages will always be an evaluation point for quarterbacks, because you look at a guy like Stetson Bennett, same with Hendon Hooker, on that end of the rookie deal, he's going to be 30 years old.
He's a backup.
29, 30. Yeah, he is a backup, and he's showcased that he's got the football intelligence, which is critical. We talked about Bailey Zappi right at the start of the show. For a lot of people, Bailey Zappi was a guy who would be a long-term clipboard holder and be a good one and eventually be a coach. And that's because of his football intelligence. And Stetson Bennett clearly got football intelligence, and it's what you need as a backup. He's shown he can handle the pressure, which is a backup as well. You need to know your backup's going to be able to come in. Worst case scenario, your starting quarterback goes down in a big game. You need to know a kid is going to be able to come in and handle the pressure. And Stetson Bennett has shown that he can do that during his Georgia career.
And I think that's a testament to his age as well. You just need a backup, and that might benefit this time if you're looking for a backup, someone that's a little bit older. Ollie, we appreciate you jumping on with us, bro.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me, as always.
Oopsie.